You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How we doing, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, do me a favor, as always, go and hit that like button. Hop in the comment section down below. Mailbag Monday is right around the corner. And subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. All of that is 100% free, will not cost you anything, and helps me out in a massive way in growing the show. Do want to remind you all as well that everything is always time-coded down in the description, so you can easily skip to whatever point in any episode that you want to hear. But thanks again, everyone, for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. If we thought it was already a full-blown kids display on the Blackhawks roster here late in the season, well, we got another one added. And last night, we heard rumblings from Frank Saravalli. He joined the Blackhawks broadcast during the intermission in the game against the New Jersey Devils. Make sure to go and check out the episode I dropped late last night, recapping the Blackhawks' frustrating 5-3 loss to New Jersey. But during the intermission, Frank Saravalli dropped a little bit of a news bomb, saying that he heard 2027 7th overall pick Kevin Korchinski is going to be recalled here in the next couple of days. And that's precisely what we saw go down this morning. KK is officially back. And we did, of course, see Korchinski a little bit earlier on in the season for a brief 9-game stint. And while he did fail to register a point during those 9 games, I think all of us agree he looked much more comfortable, much more confident in himself, particularly in the defensive zone, where he really struggled as the youngest defenseman in the NHL last year, looked much more capable in his own end, also just looked really comfortable and just had a bigger belief in himself when carrying the puck around the ice. So super excited to see what Korchinski has to offer during these final 10 games. And sounds like he's going to be in the Blackhawks lineup when they return to action tomorrow night to take on the Vegas Golden Knights. But for Korchinski, who's still only 20 years old, by the way, the kid isn't even going to turn 21 until later on this summer in late June, but he's been down in the AHL marinating with Rockford for a majority of the season, getting an opportunity to grow and further develop his game while playing in all situations. Basically the same path that we saw Alex Vlasic go on when he first joined the professional ranks, and it's obviously worked wonders for him. Now, Korchinski, Vlasic are two very different defensemen, but I like the way the Blackhawks have gone about developing their high-end blue liners over these last couple of years. No rush whatsoever. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit of a rush for Korchinski to play in the NHL last year, but I think, in hindsight, it's easy to say the Blackhawks maybe made the wrong decision. I still like getting KK some experience on the professional scene, getting his toes wet. And again, they had the opportunity to send him to Rockford this year, something they didn't have the fortune of doing last year because he was only 19 years old. It was either NHL or back to Seattle in the WHL for Kevin. While it would have been nice for him to go back to that league and absolutely dominate, he really had done that the last 2 years. There was nothing all that much that he had to prove left in that league. So I understand why the Blackhawks had him turn pro. And I think allowing him to develop down in Rockford in a consistent spot for the majority of this year has done him wonders. And we've really seen him pick up his play here as of late. In total, on the year, Korchinski's played in 54 games for the IceHogs, tallying 3 goals and 24 assists for 27 points. However, I wonder if Artyom Levshunov being recalled kind of lit a little bit of a fire under Korchinski, because in his last 9 games, and Levshunov's now played 8 NHL games, which, funny enough, I'll get into here in just a second during segment 2. But over the last 9 games, Korchinski's recorded 6 points, 1 goal, and 5 assists, along with a +9 plus-minus rating and 18 shots on goal. So he's been playing arguably his best hockey of the entire year over these last couple of weeks. And hey, why not give him an opportunity with the slew of guys we're hopeful that are going to be puzzle pieces on the back end for the Blackhawks in the future here late in the season. Do want to make sure to bring up, though, Korchinski, Artyom Levshunov, Ethan Del Mastro, and Colton Dock are all eligible to play in the AHL postseason this year still. And I'll actually get into an update on the Rockford IceHogs and where they stand in the Central Division during segment 3. So lots of good stuff here on today's episode. Quick reminder again to make sure to hit that subscribe button for me. But as far as what we could see on the blue line for the Blackhawks tomorrow when they take on the Vegas Golden Knights, I do wonder if they want to go with Kevin Korchinski and Artyom Levshunov. I feel like the pairing of the future is going to be Alex Vlasic and Artyom Levshunov, but I do wonder if they want to go with KK and Artie together. I think that's doubtful, but I do think it's a possibility. I think, though, Anders Sorensen probably keeps Alex Vlasic and Louis Crevier together. They were the top pairing against the Devils in the last game, and I do think they've established some good chemistry with one another throughout the course of this season. While I would understand if they put Levshunov back up there, as he's really been playing as a top pairing defenseman, leading the Blackhawks in time on ice these last couple of games, I think it's more likely that Louis Crevier remains with Alex Vlasic. But again, wouldn't be surprised to see Levshunov up there. Ethan Del Mastro, Connor Murphy, it seems like that's a second pairing that Anders Sorensen would like to stick together here down the stretch of the season. Maybe that does wind up being Korchinski and Levshunov on the third pairing. Maybe they go with Korchinski and Crevier since they've been down in Rockford for a majority of the season together. But that would leave Wyatt Kaiser as the odd man out. I do think there's a good chance Wyatt Kaiser is a healthy scratch tomorrow. These last couple of games, he's made some errors defensively. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the one drawing out with Kevin Korchinski rumored to be coming in. TJ Brody, man, seems like he is just on the back burner right now. And I mean, at this point of the season, considering it's all about the kids, the Blackhawks obviously have been eliminated from playoff contention. And when TJ Brody has played, he hasn't been good whatsoever. There's just no reason that TJ Brody is going to get in the lineup now that Korchinski has been recalled. Good possibility. I think we've seen the last of TJ Brody in a Blackhawk sweater. But there is everything I have on Kevin Korchinski, 2022 7th overall pick, getting recalled by the Blackhawks here this morning. Artyom Levshunov, Kevin Korchinski, Alex Vlasic, Ethan Del Mastro, Wyatt Kaiser, and Louis Crevier, all on the NHL scene right now for the Blackhawks. Absolutely incredible. And oh yeah, Sam Renzel, whenever his season comes to a close with Minnesota, there's a chance he's signing his ELC and making his NHL debut as well. So a full-blown kids display, particularly on the back end for the Blackhawks here for their final 10 games. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, I'll talk about Artyom Levshunov as his contract as he's quickly approaching the 10-game threshold. Real quick, though, Blackhawks fans, I got to talk to you all first about a new sponsor here on the Locked On Podcast Network, which is Trade Coffee. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee. But I got real tired of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That's why I turned to Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the United States, bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. And their experts have taste tested thousands of coffee, curating over 450 amazing roasts. So whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. And my first bag was an absolute game changer. I also got it with a nice Trade coffee mug, which I greatly appreciate from Trade. And it's been an absolute game changer. It adds such a smooth, rich flavor, and I could actually taste the difference from my usual coffee. And right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off on their first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. Again, that's drinktrade, TRADE.com/LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. Trade Coffee, the coffee that's next level. Segment 2, Artyom Levshunov, who had probably his most impactful game with the Blackhawks last night, tallying 2 assists and leading the team with over 24 minutes in time on ice. He has now played in 8 NHL games during his current stint and quickly approaching that 10-game threshold that would burn off the first year of his entry-level contract. This has been a topic of discussion we've seen a few Blackhawks beat writers talk about over the last couple of days. I think Scott Powers of The Athletic put out a perfect article diving through the pros and cons of Levshunov burning the first year of his ELC here this season. Highly recommend all of you Blackhawks fans go and check that out because, even though I'm biased and love the work that I do, I think Scott did an amazing job of breaking all of that down, as he does with everything on the Blackhawks beat. Scott is one of the absolute best, a must follow if you're on X or Bluesky, whatever it may be these days. But the Blackhawks are going to have to make a decision on what they want to do with Artyom Levshunov's contract. Sounds like at this point in time, they're still taking it day by day. Head coach Anders Sorensen was asked by the media recently what the plan is for for Levshunov. As the Blackhawks have 2 games here over the weekend, Friday, tomorrow against the Vegas Golden Knights, and then Sunday against the Utah Hockey Club. Those 2 games would put Artie at 10 on the season. So it's getting to decision time for the Blackhawks. I think when Levshunov was first called up, based on how it sounds, there wasn't necessarily a plan put into place, and they weren't just going to burn off the first year of his ELC for the sake of burning off his ELC. Like, if he wasn't ready, if he was going to be in over his head, they weren't going to leave him out there for 10 games just to have him burn that first year. But that hasn't been the case whatsoever. Artie has looked very comfortable during his first NHL stint, plays with a lot of confidence, a lot of aggression, a lot of moxie that you just love to see out of a 19-year-old kid, not afraid to make the wrong decision. I think, you'd rather have a player go about his business that way in his first stint than someone who's too timid and scared to make the wrong play out there. Artie has that confidence and has that swagger, plays like a little bit of a goofball out there, but that just honestly makes sense because he's a little bit of a goofball. But all in all, I think across the board, Levshunov has already proven that he can hang with the big dogs in the NHL, right? Like, he looks like one of the 6 best defensemen already on the Blackhawks roster. He looks capable of running the team's top power play unit, looks really comfortable in the offensive zone, just plays with so much belief in himself. And last night, I think there were several perfect examples of that. So based on Levshunov having this success, and again, seemingly building off of these games, like over the weekend, I think he had his best back-to-back games and is starting to find a little bit more consistency. There's still going to be hiccups. There's still going to be some poor decisions in the defensive zone, and I think he kind of allows guys to play with too much space out there. There's going to be good. There's going to be bad. That's all part of a guy's first stint, but all in all, it's been a positive, very positive first look at Levshunov in the Blackhawks sweater, and because of that, seems like everyone would be surprised to see Levshunov not play 10 games and burn off the first year of that entry-level contract. And honestly, that's probably the wise decision by the Blackhawks in the long term, because there's a possibility that by burning that first year, Levshunov is obviously going to be a year younger than when his deal expires. He's also not going to have as big of a sample size or as big of a resume to really make an argument that he should be getting paid more by the Blackhawks. So in terms of the likelihood of the Blackhawks saving themselves some money, burning off the first year of his ELC is likely the right call and likely the way they're going to go about it based on how they've handled prospects in similar situations these last few years. I mean, Landon Slaggert, Frank Nazar, we saw them burn the first years last year. Wyatt Kaiser is someone who comes to mind. So this has been a path that we've seen the Blackhawks go down with a slew of prospects over the last couple of years. And again, because Levshunov has looked so comfortable out there, I don't see any reason for the Blackhawks to go in a different direction. Ultimately, I think that is what makes the most sense, but something to keep an eye on, again, because the Blackhawks haven't officially set in stone what their plan is for Levshunov, but would be really, really shocked to see him not in the lineup tomorrow against Vegas and again on Sunday when they take on the Utah Hockey Club. That would officially put him at that 10-game marker. But there is the latest update we have on Artyom Levshunov's contract situation. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans still have to get into an update on the Rockford IceHogs. Briefly, though, I got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone like yesterday. How can you find an amazing candidate fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed, because when it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites, because Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Skip all of those unnecessary questions and steps, because you can now speed up your hiring process and also get a $75 sponsored job credit by just visiting Indeed.com/lockedon. Again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. Go and check it out right now, and make sure to support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you again to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen. Here to start off your day. For your second listen, go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter down the home stretch of the regular season with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL right now on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, over the last month, maybe even 2 months, I've covered the Blackhawks OHL prospects, I've covered the NCAA prospects, and I will be talking about the playoff games and NCAA tournament games going down involving Blackhawks prospects tomorrow. As the NCAA tournament got underway here today, so did the OHL playoffs. I went through an OHL playoff preview on yesterday's episode, also went through an NCAA tournament preview on Tuesday's episode. Make sure to go and check out those shows to cover your basis on all the Blackhawks prospects playing postseason hockey here this season. But I haven't done a really good job, admittedly, in keeping you all up to date on the Rockford IceHogs. There's just been a lot of stuff going on involving the Blackhawks and other types of prospects, and with most of their noteworthy prospects in the professional ranks now on the big league roster, it's kind of easy to leave the IceHogs off, but definitely want to get you all up to date on what's been going down with Rockford and where they stand in the Central Division standings, as we're actually down to the final 10 AHL games of the regular season as well. Taking a look at the current Central Division standings, surprise, surprise. I mean, you could literally look at the Central Division standings, I swear, at any point from any season over the last 10 years, and the Texas Stars are going to be in the number 1 spot. If not number 1, at the farthest down they'll be is number 2. I swear, they're an absolute wagon in the AHL. 38-23-0 record on the season. Atop the standings with 79 points through 61 games, but just 2 points behind them are the Milwaukee Admirals, who have 77 points but in 64 games. So 3 games in hand for the Texas Stars. The Grand Rapids Griffins are currently the 3 seed. They're 32-25-4-2 on the season with 70 points in 63 games. Then we see the Chicago Wolves, who have bounced back in a pretty big way here this season. They're 32-27-3-0, giving them 67 points in 62 games. So only 3 points back of Grand Rapids for that 3 seed. That's really big for them, as I'll talk about more in just a second. That brings us to number 5. That's where the Rockford IceHogs currently sit there. 27-27, 6-2 on the year with 62 points in 62 games. And a reminder, AHL regular season, only 72 games on the schedule. So 10 games left for Rockford, but they do have a comfortable cushion for that 5 spot right now. The Iowa Wild, they're 12 points back of the IceHogs with 50 points through 61 games. And then Manitoba, dead last, not surprising either. They have 49 points through 62 games so far this year. So very, very low chance that Iowa is going to chase down the IceHogs for that 5 spot. And that's noteworthy because 5 teams from the Central Division will qualify for the Calder Cup playoffs. However, if you've been following the AHL postseason these last couple of years or been listening to the show or watching the show for a long time, then you know the 4 and 5 seed in the Central play each other in a best of 3 play-in series. I swear the IceHogs have been in that best of 3 play-in series every year since I've been doing this podcast without fail. They always either finish 4th or 5th. Looks like they're destined to be in that bad boy once again, as again, they are 12 points ahead of the Iowa Wild for that 5 spot and 5 points back of the Chicago Wolves, who are 3 points back of the Grand Rapids Griffins. So very unlikely that Rockford is going to basically win out the rest of their games and surmount Grand Rapids in that 3 spot. They're likely going to take on the Chicago Wolves or the Grand Rapids Griffins in that best of 3 first-round playoff series, where the winner will take on the top seed in the Central Division in a best of 5 game series. At this point, that's looking like it's going to be the Texas Stars, who the Rockford IceHogs have played numerous times in that in the AHL Calder Cup playoffs since I've been doing this show as well. So there is a brief little update on the Rockford IceHogs. Hasn't been the same type of season we've seen from them the last 3 years when Anders Sorensen was their head coach. And quite honestly, I think there was more of a development focus on what was going on down in Rockford. That's obviously still happening, right? Kevin Korchinski's been down there all year. We've seen Artyom Levshunov down there for a majority of the season. Colton Dock was down there for a minute. Like, a lot of guys still that we are hopeful are puzzle pieces here in the Blackhawks rebuild, but it doesn't have the same type of vibe that it did these last couple of seasons. And I don't think it's a surprise also that a lot of guys have been getting called up from Rockford. If they were making more of a stronger push for one of the top 3 teams in the Central, I think some of those guys would have been left alone a little bit more down in Rockford. I think we could possibly see like a Ethan Del Mastro still down there, Artyom Levshunov possibly as well, right? But because they're not really pressing, they're going to be playing in that play-in game once again. I think it's just taken away from some of the true, I don't want to call it seriousness because everyone's still taking it seriously down there, but it's just a different vibe down in Rockford this year with Mark Eaton as the interim head coach, right? It's been a little bit of a circus as the Blackhawks organization this year, but still, I guess it's impressive nonetheless that the IceHogs look like they're going to be taking part in the Calder Cup playoffs once again, even if it does wind up just being the 3-game play-in series. I still think that's something noteworthy considering all the hurdles and everything they've had to go through this season on a little bit of a roller coaster ride. But again, Artyom Levshunov, Kevin Korchinski, Ethan Del Mastro, and Colton Dock all eligible to play for Rockford in the Calder Cup playoffs. So certainly can make their roster look a lot different when they take on either the Chicago Wolves or the Grand Rapids Griffins in that best of 3. But there is the latest on the Rockford IceHogs and where they stand in the Central Division standings. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and hit that subscribe button. Follow Locked On Blackhawks for free as well, wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you can get the show as soon as it gets uploaded each and every day. Until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Thursdays. I'll catch you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.